We're here today with James Durkin, Senior Vice President, Tishman Construction Corporation, an AECOM company. Mr. Durkin graduated from Lehigh in 1984 with a degree in civil engineering. He has served on a wide range of complex, large-scale projects, from mass transit terminals and airport expansions to high-rise office towers, including One World Trade Center, the tallest building in North America. He has been with Tishman for 28 years and has 30 years of industry experience. As project executive, he is responsible for the overall project management, including the allocation of corporate resources, development of the cost estimate, oversight of the project budget, development of procedures, and interfacing with the owner, design team, public agencies, and the community. Mr. Durkin is a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York. Today, Mr. Durkin will walk us through the challenges associated with building the icon that is World Trade Center Transportation Hub. I would request that you please hold your questions until the end of the session, at which time Mr. Durkin will gladly answer them. And now I'm pleased to introduce you to Mr. James Durkin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know that most of you came here to see me, and Michael Smirkanish was just a side note. But if you want to move forward, my presentation is mostly photographs, and it probably would be easier to take a look at it. So please come forward, and I'll just give you a little current status of the World Trade Center as it is today. So Tower 1, yeah, keep coming forward for sure. I think the pictures will show much better. So after many years of being on the World Trade Center, I've been on the project since 2006. And for probably the first 4 years or so, people would say, when are they going to start that project? And so now I can safely say and proudly say that the project is well underway. In fact, the end is in sight. Tower 1 is up. It's the tallest building in the United States, actually in North America. And it's looking to be completed any day now, really, in the structure, but in the papers, it will probably be the third quarter of 2014. Tower 2 is complete. They don't have a tenant at this time, so they are definitely waiting and eager to have a tenant. Tower 3 is in a similar situation. We're supposed to hear in the next month whether they have a tenant. So those two buildings just reached grade. Tower 4 is complete, and the Transportation Hub, my project, is well underway. We'll get into that. There's other projects, the Vehicle Security Center, as well as the museum. 9/11 opened up to the president just this past Thursday and opened to the public on the 21st. And then streets, there's a whole street network. There's just a current photo looking at the memorial with the two pools. You can see that the site looks very, very complete. There's this close-up on the left side is Tower 4, and on the right side is the base of Tower 1. Again, this side of the project is very, very much complete. Looking down from Tower 4, you can see off to your right side is Tower 2 and Tower 3, which are just to the podium level. Right here is 2, Tower 3 is there, and here is the Transportation Hub. Now, looking in plan view, I want to kind of describe the complexity of the project, really. Most people don't realize that there's multiple projects. And at the time of 9/11, the goals of the project were varied. There were conflicting groups that had different needs. Obviously, first and foremost is to have a memorial and a museum to pay respect for the events of that day. Additionally, there was 10 million square feet that was lost, so that had to be replaced. It was always a transportation hub, but now they wanted to make it much more obvious. Something that was an afterthought in the original Twin Towers was the retail. Turned out that the retail was incredibly lucrative, so that became a #1 goal of the site. They also wanted to reestablish the street grid. Originally, there was a super block that came all the way around here. There was no streets coming through it. And the urban planners they felt as if that kind of disassociated the site from the urban environment. So they reestablished the street grid back through the site here. This will be a walkway as well. Again, I want to look below grade. Above grade, you saw that there's individual buildings. They look like a series of just different projects. But really, below grade, you can see how the program spaces are all intertwined. You can't really tell how one building starts and another building finishes. And you can see that at the lowest level, there's 4 levels below grade, a total of about 75 feet from street level. So it's 6 stories, but there's 4 levels. In the different colors represent the different program spaces. So there's bus parking through here in this pink color. Here's the railroad tracks that go to New Jersey, the PATH station. These are the outline of the memorial pools. You can see them here and here. This is the lowest level where all the mechanical spaces of the building, and as well as loading docks. As you move up the next 2 levels, this is where the retail space, and you can really see the salmon color is all retail space. And the transportation hub runs across the site. That's really what makes the site very unique, that the transportation project, although there's multiple designers and design teams, runs entirely through the complete site. Very challenging because there's a designer here, a world-class designer, Norman Foster, Maki, a Japanese architect, David Childs. So they're all very powerhouse architects, and they all wanted their building to be the way they wanted it. And to get them to agree on below-grade space was a challenge, to say the least. To talk about the transportation hub specifically, it's just a model that kind of give you the idea of now 3D, how it kind of spans across the site. First, I just want to give you an idea of what the transportation hub is. Most people don't really know. They just think it's a train station. And it is really that simple, but above grade, this is what it appears. Santiago Calatrava is the designer. He's a fascinating individual. He's an architect, as well as a structural engineer, and a sculptor. You can see through his space, this is all structure that he wants to be able to touch and see, but it's actually these are steel pieces. Oh, I'm sorry. These are steel going up all the way to the skylight, which opens. He wanted to create an expansive space. He used light to kind of make the area much freer and make it more welcoming. And it's at 2 levels below grade, so that was quite a challenge to be able to introduce light into the space. The skylight, which you see here, does open, and it will open on 9/11. The building is positioned so that it can, the sunlight on the exact time, 10:28, when the second plane hit, that the sunlight will go right down the middle of the skylight, right down the middle of the floor. Here's just another view of outside. Again, looking up at the skylight, it soars. It's 150 feet high. It's actually taller than Grand Central and longer than Grand Central. Again, another view inside. And as I go through these renderings, we've finished some areas, and I've taken pictures of the actual site, and the renderings and the pictures are, sometimes I can't tell the difference. So it's coming to life very quickly. So again, I want to emphasize how the transportation hub runs throughout the entire site. So in this tan color, well, it goes from the World Financial Center across the West Side Highway through past Tower 1. Here's the Path Hall, which is actually the mixing area for people taking trains to New Jersey. The Transit Hall, which is primarily a retail space, through Towers 3 and 4 and Tower 2. And now these towers are all, they have different owners. The towers are 2, 3, and 4 are owned by Silverstein. Tower 1 was originally controlled by Silverstein, but it was turned over to the Port Authority. So the whole idea of having this retail space with these 10 million square feet is what we'll reestablish with this retail running through on every level is really one of the driving factors of the below-grade program space. Just another cross-section that shows some of the complexity. The building actually attaches to and connects to the MTA programs, the Fulton Street station. So this is a unique situation where the Port Authority and the MTA, 2 government agencies, actually cooperated and worked together to develop this connection points. So it's possible now to go from the World Financial Center and walk across the site and even all the way to the East River across Lower Manhattan, below grade. And you can shop the whole way. This is looking further east, the other stations that were done by the MTA projects that were coordinated. Again, I just want to emphasize that retail, again, is one of the critical pieces of the project that was one of the main goals. So in each of the buildings, even above grade, there'll be retail space. And don't forget that it's a train station, an active train station. We're building this ginormous project in and around the existing path station running through. So I want to just focus in on little engineering topics. First, Greenwich Street Corridor, which is top-down construction, kind of a unique way of building a building. So Greenwich Street is this section running right through here. Below it is the one-line subway. So you can't see it, but directly below here is the one-line subway carrying, I think, 20,000 people a day. It's up on piles right now, at this point in time, going back to 2009. Just kind of zooming in, you can start to see these piles which temporarily supported it. The one line was designed to be sitting on earth, and we needed to excavate below it while the trains were running through it and insert, if you will, slabs, 4 levels of slabs. So another view from the opposite side, it's 1,000 feet long. This is where Tower 2 will be. This is where Tower 4 is. It's built. This is Tower 3. And you can see all the stilts, but there's all earth underneath underneath the structure. As you zoom in, you can kind of see the structure. Top-down construction is where you build, well, here it is, just a little description of it, where you build one level at a time. You excavate underneath that slab that you've placed, take that earth away, and then build your next slab, and then, again, repeat that excavate underneath. So it's a little counterintuitive, but the alternative would have been to excavate all the way down with a temporary support, as you see something like this, and then build back up, and that would have delayed the project by at least a year. So we came up with the idea of building on our way down. And here you get a sense of it. You see this a slab here, and there's a wall, and as we zoom in, the wall is just kind of hanging in the air. It's a little surprising. It hadn't been done in New York City. There are a lot of people who were doubting that this would actually work. You can just see the construction, the excavation, as we're digging underneath the slab and continuing working our way down. Very unique construction. And here in this area is a complete bridge, so we have it fully supported, and then we actually continuing to excavate. We used explosives at this base while the trains are running through here 75 feet above. This is how we'd keep track of where we were on schedule. We would walk through weekly with the director in the mud, identifying where we were on schedule, whether we were delayed. You can see that in red, we tracked day in, day out. It was very challenging to have, under that kind of pressure, to be able to walk the site and assure them that we would get this structure completed in time for the 9/11 memorial opening. Just another example of what we're up against, 60-ton rock excavating. And this, again, the walls are suspended first placed, and then we put the rebar next. Another view. So this just keeps continuing, just the difficulty in excavating below and within the structure and the type of environment that we're building under. A lot of work is done by hand. You would think that in this day and age, with the internet, that the construction would be done in one rapid way, but this little Bobcat had to take out 25,000 cubic yards. This carries a third of a yard. So it's like digging with a teaspoon, a swimming pool with a teaspoon. And we had 10 of these zipping in and out of the site, bringing it out to an area that would be loaded out. Just a little bit about our organization. Something that's unique is that the Port Authority they typically deal with a general contractor. In order to proceed, the West Bathtub was required to meet the needs of the 9/11, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The East Bathtub, we decided to go trade-by-trade contractors because at the time, Silverstein was not proceeding with their buildings. So we said we could build trade-by-trade and allow the project to move forward somewhat in pieces. So when we came on the project in 2009, Tower 1 was just coming above grade. Tower 4 hadn't reached grade yet. This is the memorial. It's one pool of the memorial. This is the other pool of the memorial. So another view, this is the transportation hub. What happened was that in 2010, we had just started on the project, Tishman Turner. as a joint venture. After 2008, Silverstein decided not to build his 2 projects. The hub had terminated the contractor who was doing this. It was a general contractor. And we came in and we said, okay, this needs to be finished by 9/11. This is the one pool. This is the south pool. You can see one corner is missing because it's built by the transportation hub. We went ahead and with the general contractor, divided up this area and said, okay, we'll build this with a general contractor. This area we'll build trade by trade. These are all the services that we typically provide. It's more of a Tishman commercial, so I'll kind of skip over that. We extensively use BIM to plan the work, to actually detail the work. You can see the realism with these pictures. These are actually used to identify clashes, and then we use it to track the work and how we proceed, where each piece is installed, whether it's welded. And it's very, very realistic. We can rotate this. This is just a snapshot of a 3D model that we use. Just talk a little bit about logistics. So I mentioned that all these different projects, every project's an individual project, and each project really wants to have nothing to do with the other. We're separate project teams. Although Tishman is building many of the projects, we're probably the worst neighbors you could imagine. Kind of like 2 brothers in the same, in an Irish family, how they would fight with each other. So we sat down and we identified where the tower cranes would be located, where the crane picks would be located, the gates that would be available, using different colors to identify the different projects. So surprisingly, this worked out incredibly well. It differed drastically from the Port Authority's original concept of just one big project and everyone working together. On an individual basis, we plan actually our cranes, our locations of our cranes, where every delivery comes in. We have planning for over 10,000 employees working at the site, hundreds of trucks. The downtown neighborhood was very concerned about just the backup, the traffic, the diesel fumes. There's just a lot of concern of how all these materials would get in and out of the site. So we planned for every delivery was located. And you can just see the site congestion in this photo. This is a orchestration. This was planned. This was not a mistake. We were eager to get the project moving, and we put as many people to work as we possibly could. And you can see one crane is coming down, another crane is going up. And I'm going to talk extensively about the challenge of how we planned out a very congested, detailed plan of the work. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about the cranes. Cranes are really the heart of every construction project. And here we have quite a few unique, different ways of dealing with them. Tower cranes, primarily, especially in New York City, on Tower 1, you can't see them, but they're all the way up. But Tower 2, Tower 4, Tower 3, that we all have tower cranes, except for this one big red crane. This big red crane was needed to set steel on this side for the memorial. But we came up with different ways of picking steel. We used sliding cranes. This is a tower crane to have the capacity that's needed, but we were able to slide it on this platform and move it all the way to the street to pick the steel that we needed and slide it back and be able to set steel where we wanted to. Here's another example of the sliding crane moved all the way over to Church Street and how the site is still congested but very organized. In March of 2011, so we were struggling with steel, very challenging steel that had to be set. There's a bridge across this site, right through here. It's actually a bridge, a 150-foot long bridge. This crane needed to pick that steel, set it on this side, which was the memorial. Now you notice the date, it's March 2011. The mayor had said that the memorial will open on the 10th anniversary. So in just 6 months, we needed to finish around the pool. So just another view, you can see that it's by no means ready to accept people coming in. And if you may not be familiar, but the names of all of the people who were lost on that day are inscribed on the wall of the memorial. So we needed to complete at least 25 feet around the memorial so that everyone coming to the site could find a lost loved one or someone they wanted to pay respect to. At the same time, I mentioned about digging with the teaspoon. It turns out that digging with a teaspoon on the Granite Street corridor is very slow, and that was running a little bit behind schedule. So that excavation continued along the Granite Street corridor. The project, the Oculus, needed to start at this point in time. But still, this big red crane, which is primarily setting steel on this side, was in the way. And you can see the path of the excavation coming to this crane to take the excavated material from over here. So it was quite a challenge to start the Oculus and complete without jeopardizing this work, this side of the project. So we modeled it. We showed to the Port Authority that we could probably start the foundation work and work around the red crane and keep setting steel. And we actually, what I did was we modeled periods of time showing the different movements of the project and how it developed. And then afterwards, I looked back with the site photos, and amazingly, it worked exactly as we planned. So here's just how we would proceed setting the foundation walls and continue to move forward in this area. This notch was actually needed to allow this crane to roll into the site. And here's a site photo showing there's the crane, and here are the slab and the foundation work starting. There's Tower 3, Tower 2. Here's the subway line running through. And then again, July 2011, we'd be continuing to erect steel and erect concrete and take deliveries and continue working on the other side of the site. By August of 2011, we thought that the crane would be ready to leave. And you can see the crane is actually, that ringer portion of the crane is off. It's now August. We've advanced the construction. We're at 2 levels now, and we're moved. The tower cranes are both erected. Here's another, by September of 2011, the crane is in a position where it doesn't have the ringer portion of it. It's been dismantled. And here it is actually on its way out. We're 2 levels with concrete here. We're well advanced with the construction in this area, and this crane is on its way out. We definitely had our doubters that said that we couldn't get it out. And I don't know if any of you know the story about the little steam shovel that when they built the building around it. So we had that same idea. We said, if we can't get it out, we'll just paint it white, and Calatrava would never know. But as we move forward, we continue with the plan. Both tower cranes erected, moving with the trades working together. Foundation work still needed to take place here. The trades were incredibly cooperative. Union contractors working with each other. It was really a fantastic effort to see. So we're at 2 levels. Concrete's placed 2 levels here. There's 1 level here and foundation work taking place there. At the same time, we've met the 9/11 memorial. We've opened up the site, and this is the one-line bridge, if you will, where the subway is still going through the site. Continuing month by month, starting steel. We needed to pick up time. We were under obligations to Silverstein for his towers 2 and 3. They were progressing, and we needed to keep pace with them. So we're setting steel, again, with concrete work taking place. And this is unusual in New York. Usually you don't have a steel contractor and a concrete contractor. In this case, we still have the foundation contractor, all occupying the site at the same time. There's liability issues. There's just the planning and the cost of it, being able to do this work. And again, we were able to just plan it out. This was done months and months in advance of how we would set the sliding cranes and then set the steel and drive to our completion date, which was the end of 2012. We needed to have our work completed to grade. Otherwise, there would be huge damages paid to the Silverstein projects for Towers 2 and Tower 3. The odd thing was that we depended on, you can see this steel actually depends on Towers 2 and Tower 3 to land into those buildings. We don't have any columns within the Oculus itself. So we needed to have these buildings in place, but yet if we didn't make grade in time, we would have a penalty. The Port Authority would have a penalty, $300,000 a day. So we continued July, the site matching up the challenges of this just unique structure. You can just see some of the unique steel that's in place. We had to build this platform because the steel was just so heavy that we needed to be able to drive the steel to here so that this crane could pick it. We could no longer move this crane up to the street like we had in the past. Here we are just driving to our completion date by August. Here we are at August, pouring the last pieces of the ends. By October, we had started a drastic change, but these cranes now, this is December, these cranes are erected. These are the Oculus cranes, and you can see that the grade has been reached. We've met our obligation to Silverstein. I'll just remind you that at this time, if you remember, October of 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit. The site was inundated with 40 feet of water at our lowest level. We had the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers come in, and they were planning and talking to us about how we had 125 million gallons of water we had to get out of the site. And by, I'd say the 10th day in, the Army Corps had definitely a plan of how to get the water out. And at that point, we said, listen, it's been 10 days, we've been pumping water. I think we got another 3 days left. You guys can probably go help somebody who needs it more than us. So now I just want to talk more about the Oculus steel. Very unique structure. You saw in the prior pictures. It's a different contractor. It starts below grade, and it's coming out of the ground at this point. Very unique geometry. So with BIM, you're able to plan everything out. You're able to visualize it. You'll be able to locate it. And as this is done, it allows square buildings to be easily built. Well, this is anything but a square building. The site slopes down. There's a curve. It's really quite a challenging project just to get the geometry correct. Calatrava was very helpful with me. It was one of the items I dictated was that I said that we did not want to have these cranes, which were originally planned to go all the way down to the lowest level and into our mechanical space. They would have prevented the mechanical work from proceeding. So we said, we need these cranes to stay at this level, and can't have any shoring. What you see here, this is not actually shoring. This is just light gauge scaffolding for the workers to work on. So we kept all of the supports outside of the building. There's cables that run to the ground. The idea being that we wanted to be able to advance work at the lowest levels as well as on this level while the steel was being completed, or at the point that it's just as it's completed, we're ready to go. And Calatrava was actually very helpful with me. Spent several hours describing how the dynamics of the project. And this is actually being built like a bridge, where this relies on the prior piece, and which relies on the piece before, all the way back to an abutment, much like a bridge. So you can see this is the abutment area, and it's not actually supported. This is not being supported in any way other than this arch, which brings the loads back into the abutment area. Again, as we're just nearing in, setting a piece a day, you can just see the complexity and the congestion on the site where all these pieces are located, and the pieces of equipment and the welding. There's really quite a dance that actually has to be done. And it's not by accident. It's thought out, it's planned out. Things change, so you're always dealing with the changes that happen day in and day out. Aside from Hurricane Sandy, we had an earthquake, and we had an earlier tropical rainstorm that caused as much disruption as Hurricane Sandy. So these are the things that you deal with day in and day out. You can, again, the shape is starting to come forward. And we just, these pictures are back in the December and January time frame. And at this point in time, so the steel is on site. We're actually closing the arch. We set our keystone piece, the piece where the two pieces are coming together, and you hope that you did a good job with them coming together, that it fit. And that piece was set just the week before last. So we are at a point now where the project is really advanced, and we can see the end in sight. There's one of the final pieces going in. This is just looking up from this lower level. And just to look at, you get a good view of some of the complexities in an earlier site, but this is a solid piece of steel which will hold the stairs and the escalators. It really is a sculpture. You get a sense of it below grade. And now as I walk below grade and I start to see it coming together, it's really remarkable. This is the one-line subway. The subway is running through. These are the grand staircase. This is just, you get a good sense of the symmetry of the building. And what I really want, I don't know if you can see this, but so I was talking about, this is the finished station now. So this is one level. At the lowest level, we have the tracks, and where, as you go across, this is platform A, B, C, and D. This is as it is today. Platform A is finished, the marble's in place, the work is done, it's being used. Platform B is under construction. What separates these two is a plywood wall, just a matter of inches. This is platform C, a temporary platform that was put in place after 9/11, which is still being used today. And this is platform D. And there's a plywood wall that just separates a matter of inches between the project. You go up one level, and the same thing again. So here's the finished marble. Above us is the memorial. And this is what's under construction. Again, just a plywood wall away. So that is really kind of some of the challenges that you see on the project, just working in and around a occupied train station. The different owners, the different architects, I think it gives you an appreciation of the challenges of 2008 when Silverstein wasn't proceeding with his buildings, how we would think of a way to keep moving the projects forward, and the tools that we use to allow us to move the project forward. So at this point, that concludes my presentation. Thank you. You've been a great audience. I'll take questions. Yes.
In the late 60s, I was a civil engineering student here, and we made annual trips to the original trade center and worked the concepts into classes that we had those years. And to me, I always felt, even though I obviously didn't work on the trade center, I always felt that I had a connection to the trade center. And I was wondering whether you were able to do anything like that, or anyone was there. This was sponsored by the Port Authority and the Moles.
Well, you guys are going to think I planted that question, but believe it or not, my father worked for the Port Authority on the Twin Towers, and so he would come to work on Saturdays and bring me, and I was in that building actually from the time it was at the foundation stage. So seeing this slurry wall, the existing slurry wall, I remember actually as a kid, as an 8-year-old on the site, and then when I was on Tower 1, we set the first column. And I invited my parents to that celebration. And Mayor Bloomberg was there, and Governor Pataki, and it was really special because my father was invited up to the podium, and my mother was talking to Mayor Bloomberg. So it is, I have a very special connection to the site. And I'm not alone. There's so many other people who have that, similar dads who worked on the World Trade Center and as trade people.
Unbelievably impressive, the complexity. Congratulations. Curious if any of the impact of what happened at the World Trade Center influenced the design details structurally or reinforced it?
Tremendously. Yes, they rewrote the code really based on what the events of 9/11. And Building 7, which we didn't talk about, which is actually not on the World Trade Center site proper, it was built by Silverstein. Tishman built it, and Silverstein actually pioneered much of the improvements and innovations that were done. So specifically on Tower 1, there's 3 exit stairs. One is the first, 2 are the typical 2 means of egress that are required, and the third is a first responder stair. And the stairs are extra wide to allow people who are coming down not to interfere with people coming up. The stairs are inside a concrete core, and the concrete core is 14,000 PSI, which is the strongest concrete poured in New York and quite possibly in the United States. So the walls are 5.5 foot thick at the lowest level, going all the way up to the top. So the building could collapse around it, and that core will still stand. The fire suppression systems, multiple redundancies. So there's been a tremendous number of improvements. Yes. Any other questions? Mike.
I was there coincidentally just last night, and I looked at Tower 1, and it seems like the lower several floors look much different than the remainder of the building, and as if there won't be tenants there. What goes on in the lowest portion of Tower 1?
There's two things. One is that the lobby, which is covered by different color glass than the top. That is, can we go back? Can I flip back to the very first picture? And then, okay, I got it. So this different colored glass is actually, they wanted to do two things. One is that the original World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, had a soaring lobby. That was one of the impressive features of the building. And we came into the Twin Towers, and you initially, from the outside, were in awe of its height, and then you came in awe of that 60-foot lobby. So they wanted to preserve that view. And so that represents half of this height. But the other thing about it is there's all mechanical spaces here. And so those floors are all the building mechanical systems. What's unique, though, is that the building is basically a concrete bunker. It's surrounded on the outside by concrete walls, at least 12 inches thick. And David Childs wanted to do something different. He's the architect. Wanted him to. This is quite a challenge to be able to introduce light into the site, not to make it look like a concrete bunker, and to keep it light and airy, which I think he achieved in this design. Originally, his original design was actually glass prisms, like actual would refract the light. So during the day, it would shimmer. And I went to China to actually test this unique way of doing the podium wall. And we did a mock-up. It all worked. It was actually gorgeous. But unfortunately, when we went to do the actual production runs, the glass couldn't withstand the temperature that was needed in the event of a fire. So it would actually kind of explode. And that was certainly not something anyone would want. So they did come up with this very late in the game, this design, which I think is actually a beautiful design that they came up with. But that does represent, it's 200 feet of, from here to there, that's lobby and mechanical space. And then the glass starting at this level is all blast resistant. So it was tested, we tested it out in New Mexico at a facility that the government uses to test bombs. And we actually set off a bomb similar to the one in Oklahoma City there's 3 layers of glass, and so we set it off and only the outermost layer of glass broke, which was really impressive. We were hoping that it would break the inside and not fly across the space, but in fact only the outermost. So it is a robust, incredibly robust building. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, you didn't mention cost at all. How do you even get your hands around something that's never been done? The budget fund?
Well, for those of you who are architects and engineers and familiar with Calatrava, you just say that name and everyone knows it's really, really expensive. In fact, in his presentation to the Port Authority, that he made this presentation, and the commissioners of the Port Authority, I mean, it was so moving. It was the shape of the oculus structure itself is to emulate a dove leaving the hands of a child. So he's a fantastic presentation. But the commissioners, with their fiduciary responsibility, said, well, is it going to be expensive? And he said, but of course. So, but we did budget the project, and the budgets are sometimes, politically charged, or frequently politically charged, and so it wasn't always appropriate to put out that number at that point in time. But the numbers that we put forth, and realize that we also came in 2009, so the design was fully done. The cost is what we thought it would be. It's I think it was 3.9 billion. Mm-hmm. That's the number. So and there's a lot of publicity. That was originally 2.2. Yes. Any other questions? One over there.
Describe the building. I'm wondering, was there any work done to improve or upgrade the technology of the subway system or path line? Path line is quite old.
Yes. The technology, to mine, I'm not actually involved with the path portion of it, but the technology, I don't believe has been changed very much. But they have redone all of the path station, the tracks and the switches, everything's been redone, even through the tunnel, because their tunnels were flooded with Hurricane Sandy. And so no, so as far as changes to the technology, I'm not aware of any. One in the back there.
What is the, you may have said this when I came in late, but what is the expected completion? You said that you finally just put in the final keystone, so when is the final project?
It'll be the end of 2015, and that will be, we're working together with the retail spaces to actually have when we finish, like a typical base building, when a base building finishes, when I say Tower 1 finishes third quarter, it's without the tenant. The tenant work goes on after that, so people don't move in. But at the end of the end of 15 will be with the tenant work. It'll be a grand opening, and it'll be ready for public consumption. Well, thank you very much.